and welcome to the next lesson of the Shine Learning Programme. Now, I know we're a little behind with our lessons, and that's because I've got a constant sore throat and a ridiculous sounding voice. So as we go on, you're going to hear the change in my voice, but please ignore that. It's absolutely fine, and we'll see how far into the lessons we can go. So what I'm going to explain a little bit first is, why do we confuse visually similar letters and digits? And this can also apply to words. So, common mistakes when reading and spelling are mixing up B's and D's, or similar looking words such as was and saw, or how and who. Letters and numbers might be written back to front or upside down. The most common numbers for dyslexics to reverse are 9, 5, and 7. So why is this happening? So human brains are designed to function in a 3D world. Because real world objects are the same no matter which way they're turned, our brains are automatically wired to recognize reversed or mirrored versions of the same object as being the same thing. So it's a natural brain function that has been tested and observed in young people as well in many types of animals. But reading is a two-dimensional process, and many languages, including English, include alphabets that are including visually similar letters that are a mirrored version of other such letters such as D, B, P, and Q. So what can we do about it? Now, first things first is these confusions are absolutely commonplace up until around the age of 7. But using multi-sensory ways of learning, it's possible to address this issue for most of the time, but it does take time and effort. So let's get started. So what we've got here on our first of 4 slides, you can see we've got letters of all different sizes, and they all look visually similar. So if this was an object in the 3D world, our brain would automatically recognize it for what it is. But reading, as we've just said, is a two-dimensional process. So what I'm going to ask you to do is make sure you've got a blue colour, pink, green, and orange. And I'm going to ask you to draw inside the shape of each of these letters, saying the sound of the letter or the name as you do this. So what we're doing is we're giving our brain as much information to help us to spot the differences between all of these 4 visually similar characters. So I've got the green pen out here, so that we're going to look at green, and that's the letter Q. So let's see if we can find a letter Q. So here's one. So we draw the line down, and we do the ball, and as we do this, we say the sound of the name of the letter. So it's Q or Q. Now, this particular letter doesn't have a sound on its own because it's always seen with this letter to make the Q sound. So for this particular letter, you might want to say its name, Q, rather than the sound it makes. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and make sure you do move between the 4 different colours, because remember, our brain needs as much information to help it deal with this issue. All right, so pause the video now, and can you highlight and identify the 4 different visually similar letters using the different colour of different colours and saying the name or the sound each of the letter makes as you do this. So remember that if your pen is touching the paper, you need to be making the sound with your mouth. All right, so pause the video. Let's see how you do on there. If there's anything you're not sure about or you're unsure of, please write and let me know below the video. So let's remove this colour, and we're going to look at slide 2. This time we've got the same kind of letters again. So we've got the B, the P, the D, and the Q. But this time you're going to do it again, and you're going to write down in the 4 yellow boxes. So here we go. Let me grab that pen. Here, 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 and here. How many of each letter? So what this task is really doing is giving your brain the opportunity to repeat the task that you've just done. It's important that we have lots of overlearning opportunities. Lots of looking, seeing, saying, and doing. So this should be a nice quick one. But still change between the colours and saying the sound of the letter or the name of the letter as you do so. Now, oh, and I've been saying we've got 4 slides. Actually, we've got 5 on here, haven't we? Apologies about that. So let me grab my pen. So what we're going to do this time, you can see that throughout this short lesson, we're sticking with visually similar letters. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is start at this side of each row. And I want you to go from left to right. Okay, that's really important because that's how we write, that's how we read. Use a timer to measure your speed. So how long does it take to get from the left to the right of that row? So as you go on, what I'm going to ask you to do is to repeat this a number of times to see how fast and how accurate you may be. So what we do is this. You say the sound or the name of each letter as you go. Because quite often, and most of us will be able to recognize all these letters, but it's the processing, the amount of time it takes for us to make sense of something that can really slow those of us with dyslexia down. So this is how we do it. We start here on the left. P, D, G, B, Q, B, Q, G, D, Q, and D. And remember, you're timing yourself and you're going to write that here. Now, if you make a mistake, that's absolutely fine. But the point of repeating something is as you do the next few lessons on developing your visual processing skills, then those mistakes should become far fewer, all right? And then you go down to here, and again, you're saying, can you see these are repeated? All right, it might be repeated for the first few letters, and then we think, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this. But then make sure that you recognize that not all of the letters on this third row are the same as the first 2. So can you pause the video now and see how you go with this? And I'd really love to hear of anybody, if you're struggling with a particular character, if you do something that works for you, or any other ideas at all, please put them in the space below. Now, let's have a look at our fourth of 5, I should say, 4th of 5 slides that we're working on today. So what you need to do for this is to say the sound of each letter aloud. So it's really important. Don't think that, oh, I'll say it in my head. Different pathways, different parts of the brain will be used for those 2 very different processes. So you say the sounds of each letter aloud and then finish the pattern. All right, so that's the first thing we do. And you can see now we've still got our vowels in red, but we're including now our consonants in blue. And as time goes on, all the consonants will always be in blue and the vowels will be in red. So what we do, we go to the first row here and you say the sounds of each letter aloud and then finish the pattern. So we're talking about the sounds, not the names. So we say a, b, k, d, e, f, g. All right, and then we can time ourselves. How many seconds did it take you to complete that first row? And that's what we're going to go down now. You can see that the first one is much more straightforward because it starts at the beginning of the alphabet, but the remaining ones won't. All right, so what I would recommend that you do, and I've added this in a previous letter and their resources, have the alphabet in front of you to help you. And the more you look at that, the more it will make sense and the more you'll remember. So then we've got I, J, K, L, M, N, oh, and then so on. And you can see then we repeat this last character and then we move on. So we're looking at the sequence of the alphabet as well. So please don't think using a printed alphabet is cheating. These are all ways that we need as people with dyslexia or people who need to improve their literacy skills. This is what works, all right? As long as we're using multisensory learning, it's absolutely fine. And eventually it will all come together. Now, finally, we've got our slide number 5. And this time we've got digits only. All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do, have a look at the starting point and the finishing point, and I want you to find your way through the trail, moving vertically, which is up and down, diagonally from one corner to the other, and horizontally is across. You can only go on A6, all right? So using these numbers as stepping stones, you've got to go from the start, which is a 6, to the end here. Now, of course, the finish is on a 9, but I want you to get as close to the finish line as you can using only the number 6s. All right, so as we go through, we're looking for a pathway. So remember, that's absolutely acceptable because that's a diagonal line. Then we've got another diagonal line. And then we might think, oh, I'm going to go back here, I think. And then we can go down there, across here, down there. And I would, if it was me and you were one of my learners, I would say for you to say the number as you're circling them. Remember, if your pen is touching the paper, something needs to be coming out of your mouth. So we've got 6 and then 6, all right? So see how quickly, how many steps. If you've got see if you can find the lowest number of steps it takes to go from the start to the finish, and then the greatest number. All right, that will give yourself a challenge. And of course, this is something you could print out again and try and time yourself then. Now, if you find visually similar letters and numbers really overwhelming, and you find you get quite anxious about it, or if you do them but you can't spot them, don't worry too much about timing yourself. Just practice with these different activities a number of times. It's best to do a few minutes a day and rather than doing an hour a week. So that's our final and 5th task of today's lesson. For those of you who have any questions or you're unsure why we're doing certain things, anything at all, just pop it below. So thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.